Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. It's been a couple weeks since I put out a video, and now that we're in November, I figured it was a good time to check back in with the game, see how things are progressing, what's new, and what better way than this month in Dragalia Lost. I actually put up a poll over on our Discord server to ask what type of video you'd like to see from me this weekend, and this month in Dragalia Lost ended up winning out. There are a lot of things we could discuss, as it has been a while since I made a video, but for now, for today, we're just going to talk about this month in Dragalia Lost, and as we go through some of these topics, I'll give you a little window into my updated impressions on things like the time attack, the high dragon trials, to kind of tell you where I'm at today. So here we go, this month in Dragalia Lost. Hello everyone, Yuji Okada here, director of Dragalia Lost. We saw a lot of people sharing their thoughts on the first anniversary raid event, and I wanted to thank you all for being so enthusiastic about the game. I know the story might have lacked a certain celebratory flair that you'd expect from the game's first anniversary, but we hope that you enjoyed playing the event nonetheless. And I have to say, I really enjoyed that event. That was probably one of the highlights for me of Dragalia Lost all year, and I think that the way they did the Omega Raid, Kronos and Kronos Nyx, the theming, the fact that Kronos Nyx can just crash a galaxy onto you, I felt like it was pretty cool, so that was definitely a high point for me for this year. Regarding the Mega Man event, so here we go into the first major topic. I plan on sharing some information about the Mega Man events coming at the end of this month via notifications and social media. The first thing I'd like to share is that Mega Man is the only adventurer you'll be able to add to your team during this event. There won't be a Sun Showcase where you can get adventurers other than Mega Man, but the good news is that all players who participate in the event and fulfill certain conditions will be able to get him. So this was posted on Twitter. I saw a lot of chatter about this topic. I know it's disappointing for some people who are hoping for various characters like Roll, or Proto Man, or Zero, but I have to say I'm okay with this. Part of that is because my Wormite reserves are still fairly low, especially coming off the limited Halloween banner, but I'm fine with this mostly because I feel like Mega Man is the iconic character from his franchise, whereas Fire Emblem Heroes kind of built its name and its brand as a gacha, at least coming off of the Fire Emblem franchise, obviously, which is all about its characters. I feel like there's just a wide range of adventurers that they could pick from with that, whereas with Mega Man, it's probably a little harder to translate that many characters into Dragalia format, especially with them all having a sci-fi tinge to them. So I'm happy, I'm fine that it's just Mega Man, everybody's gonna get him for free. And the timing of this works out so that Gala should happen around that period of this event as well. So toward the end of this month, we should get our next Gala unit. So there's going to be a showcase that people are probably going to be clamoring toward anyway. So I'm kind of cool with this. But we get some more details on how Mega Man will actually work. So let's keep reading. It says, this news may be a little disappointing to some players, but we're working hard to make sure Mega Man's actions are true to the source material. And that's the thing I'm most pleased with this. Mega Man's skills allow him to switch to weapons with special functions and use those weapons a certain number of times. The way he controls is also unique. In terms of his Dragalia Lost weapon type, he'll be a wand user, so that's confirmed. But he moves differently from other wand users, and he can fire off shots in rapid succession. He is also capable of using his charge shot by doing a force strike, and while swiping normally causes an adventurer to roll, Mega Man will actually use his sliding move. When Mega Man hits 0 HP, a special animation will play, causing him to disappear like he does in the Mega Man games. Don't worry though, he'll come back without issue if you use a continue. So I don't recommend you ever use a continue because there's no penalty for losing a quest in Dragalia Lost. You keep all your stamina, you keep all of your wings or astral pieces, so they're basically trying to tempt you to spend with those continues, but if you have the time, you can just replay the match, and even if you continue, you're not guaranteed to clear, so never do that, but I'm sure there's a cute animation, and I'm thinking of Smash here, where when Mega Man dies, you see blue orbs kind of pop off of wherever he got KO'd, and when he comes back, he's kind of beamed in as well. So I'm thinking that they might actually implement that if you do a continue, which is kind of unfortunate because it's not something you ever really want to do. But still, I do love that attention to detail. I think that's really nice. The charge shot and sliding sounds really cool. I think it's a pretty cool way to capture the mechanics of Mega Man, and I am pretty pleased with how much detail there is here. So him being a wand user makes sense, although there were some people who were hyped and hoping there would be maybe a new gunner or magical gun weapon class, but wand does fit the mold of Dragalia. And in terms of switching weapon types with his skills, that does sound quite interesting. I think the easiest way they could do that would be probably skill shift. So maybe the skills hit pattern and animation varies greatly from skill shift to skill shift. So far, skill shift has usually been additive and the animation doesn't fluctuate very much. I'm thinking of somebody like Mikoto, for instance, when he uses his first skill. The third time you use it, it does actually affect the animation. It's a little bit more elaborate. There's a different sign that he throws out. So I think that they could probably do some cool things with this. Like maybe one of the skill shifts switches between Leaf Shield to Flame Sword to something else. I think that there's probably ways that they could implement this that would be pretty fun, so I'm happy about that. I also wonder if maybe they're going to lean more heavily into Mega Man 11, with that being the most recent entry, and maybe try to play off some of the skills that Mega Man can attain in that game. I'm not too familiar with that, so I'll leave that to the Mega Man experts in the comments, but finally, when he shapeshifts, Mega Man will summon Rush and ride on him doing his famous Rush Jet move, and he's able to attack in multiple directions, which makes it easy to take on hordes of enemies. We'll put out a video explaining how Mega Man controls in mid-November, so keep an eye out. So it sounds like he's going to be a really exciting unit. Even though he's a welfare unit, he's going to have some very unique properties, which is great. And we actually see a little screenshot here of how they're changing the HP bars, and what look to be 2 gauges as well that are unique to Mega Man. Interestingly, Naveed, Azalith, and Mikoto are there, and they are some of the adventurers who are rumored to get a 6th mana circle around December, so maybe that's a little bit of a tease for them actually getting that extra mana circle. This event will also feature some Mega Man event-specific weapons. By equipping these weapons, any adventurer will be able to fire the Mega Buster's charge shot, so I think that's just hilarious. You'll also be able to get some event-specific worm prints, and some of these can be arranged to form one big picture. Very cool, and in the last this month in Dragalia Lost, it was teased that the Great Worms would play a role in this event. And there are a couple of worm prints, the Great Worm prints that you get when you're trying to work on getting the High Dragon prints, that do form a panorama view when you combine them all side by side. So I think that there may be something related here, and my hope is that the Great Worms are actually somehow the bosses of this mode, or maybe like a mechanized or robotic Great Worm. That would be really sweet. Initially with this event, I was hoping that Mega Man could sort of don the armor of each Great Worm. Like, imagine him with kind of like a robotic Midgard Stormer helmet, and when he has that dragon equipped, he can transform into a wind dragon that's kind of like a robo Midgard Stormer. That was my hope, but the Rush thing does sound pretty cute as well. So you'll also be able to get some event-specific worm prints. We read through that. And we're also preparing a number of songs with special arrangements, including Dr. Wily Stage 1 from Mega Man 2, and you'll be able to hear the original songs by meeting certain conditions. So that is a very lovely touch as well. I think the Fire Emblem songs kind of caught us off guard with the hip-hop elements in the menu theme. Of course, there were some more traditional songs as well, but having Dragalia's take on the Mega Man songs is pretty exciting. So overall, I think there's a lot of good fan service here. I know some people are disappointed by the lack of a banner, but I still think that this right now is the most exciting thing on the horizon. There aren't a lot of new events that have been announced, so we'll continue reading about the rest of the month, but for now, this looks like the most exciting thing that's coming up. We also get some artwork, and we can kind of see some of the villains in the background, maybe characters who will play a role in the story as well. And the different weapons that we can get. So I guess there's one for each weapon type, and all of them will let you do the Mega Buster charge shot. So that's just going to be hilarious, I think. And maybe there will be some interesting gimmicks or meta breaking things with that. You've seen all sorts of mechanics, or we've seen all sorts of mechanics at this point, including Audric, make a splash. So if this has any unique properties at all, there's a chance that in some fight it shows up to do something really weird or really fun. So I'm hopeful about these, but I have a feeling that they will probably just have reduced stats, similar to Alphonse's Folkvanger that we got during the Fire Emblem Lost Heroes crossover. So regarding events in November, this is the second section here. What do you think of the current Stirring Shadows story event? If you haven't played it yet, I'd recommend playing the Accursed Archives Facility Event Revival first, which is live at the same time. And yes, the Stirring Shadows does have spoilers for the Cursed Archives, but they also kind of spoiled the major point in the Summoning Showcase trailer, so I don't think it's really too bad of a drawback to play through Stirring Shadows first, but basically you do want to initiate Stirring Shadows at some point, because that being a story event, it rewards you for all other quests you're playing, including quests that you're playing as part of the facility event itself. So be advised of that. Another thing with this facility event that kind of caught me off guard was you can't actually level up the facility to level 35. So I guess that was a one-off thing for Halloween, or maybe they're just being judicious about which elements get more of a boost and which do not. As far as new information though, we find out that a new Wind Attune 5-star adventure, Akasha, will be added via Summon Showcase starting 12 a.m. November 4th, 2019. So of course that's in my time zone, and daylight savings time is coming up, so that's why. She'll be the first Wind Attune 5-star staff user, so maybe she'll have a role to play in Master High Mercury's trial. We really don't know what that's going to be like at the time I'm recording this. And the 5-star dragon Haster will also be available at the same time. So both of these characters are part of Stirring Shadows if you haven't played it already. I will let you discover for yourself who they are. But this will be the first time a dragon has a primed ability, and the adventurer you're controlling will receive a buff effect when their skill gauge fills. So that could be very interesting depending on the aura on Haster. I wonder if they might do this where he has a huge primed buff, like his whole aura is about primed, and so you really only get that buff whenever your skill comes up. If that's the case, then, this would reward characters who can charge their first skill in exactly 15 seconds, so you can constantly keep that up. I hope that there's a strength or damage dealing component to this, though, because if this is just an HP dragon with, prime defense, probably doesn't have that big of a role to play for now. It's still a pretty interesting mechanic to have on a dragon, though, so I'm curious about this for sure. That is the one drawback to the primed mechanic, though, is just the fact that there is a limit. So if you charge your first skill in less than 15 seconds, you're not actually going to get the primed effect. And I believe that's the cutoff for how frequently you can reuse it. Besides the primed ability, after the Stirring Shadows event ends, so this is now about a new event, we'll be bringing back Kindness in Captivity. So this was the raid that I think happened November of last year, where we first got introduced to Melsa and we got introduced to Cerise in a greater capacity. This has not been around since then, so this is a welcome revival, I would say, for many players who missed it. Like the Fractured Futures event, this raid event will use the raid boost system. They received a lot of feedback about the chances of receiving raid boosts, so they're adjusting them to drop a little more frequently this time around, and they plan to use raid boosts in all raid events going forward. I think this is one of the positives I have to acknowledge, and something that I didn't take into great consideration when I was a little bit distressed about the Expert and Master High Dragon trials and Time Attack is, yes, Cygames has been really good about listening to feedback in the past. So I have a feeling a lot of feedback was submitted on that topic, the High Dragons as well, and maybe there will be adjustments, and Time Attack was introduced for the first time, so it's to be expected there are some bumps. I hope that the raid boosts actually culminate in an Omega raid, though, so it doesn't explicitly say Omega is returning here, and if there's no Omega raid, then I kind of see the raid boost system as not really having much of a point, so I do hope that that makes a return. I'm not 100% sure it will, but I really hope it does. So let's see what else. There are adventurers who will be added to the game via Summon Showcase at the same time as the revival event, but you'll have to wait for a future notification for more information on that. We're planning on adding some really unique adventurers this time. So no idea who that could be, really. I don't know if there's other characters. I'm trying to think back, but I don't think really that many other characters played a role in Kindness and Captivity other than Harl. So maybe there's a chance of Harl. He is a very popular character, surprisingly, but actually not that surprisingly. The one who's popular that surprised me is Emil, but Harl is quite popular. So maybe they'll add some of the villains. That would be kind of fun. But otherwise, I really have no clue who that could be. And they're running increased drop events for the various elements of Imperial Onslaught in November. And we got some new Astral Raids. And this weekend, we actually had Qitian Daxiang, and then we're going to have Barbary as well. So as of now, only Thanatos and Kronos, I guess, as well, are really missing from the Astral rotation. And the Qitian Daxiang raid doesn't actually give any new type of augments or anything. It's still just HP augments or strength augments depending on the week that it rotates in for adventurers and for Wyrmprints. So dragon and weapon augments are still extremely elusive. There's only 10 of each for HP. We're also planning on adding some new void enemies at the end of November, and we'll share more info about events in future notifications. I'm hoping that maybe they add harder difficulties for the void battles. If the harder high dragons are going to be a thing, then maybe introduce some of the master mechanics into like a master difficulty or harder difficulty. I don't know if master already exists, but for things like Void Poseidon, Void John, Void Nidhogg, etc., maybe they could have harder variants with some cool new coloration or something like that, a few new mechanics, especially to give you more drops as far as the hearts go, because those hearts can easily come up short when you're trying to craft some of these high dragon weapons. I found that to be a recent bottleneck of mine as I start to max unbind more and more high dragon weapons. So hopefully the new void enemies and the endeavors and any double drops at that time can kind of help out with that particular pitfall or that particular choke point. Now we get to the new difficulty levels and advanced dragon trials. So the first part of this is just about the news. The remaining dragons are going to be added to master difficulty. This is the most difficult content in the game. So November 4th, we're getting High Mercury. November 11th, we're getting High Zodiac. And then starting on November 18th, all of these high dragon trials are going to be in on a rotating basis. The weapons that were added with the addition of these are extremely powerful, so be sure to check them out. Of course, I'm sure many of you are aware of their importance in clearing Expert and Master already, but Okada-san explicitly says the Mercurial Gauntlet will be designed around these weapons from level 51 onward. So if you haven't experienced those challenges yet, those levels of the Gauntlet, Roy's Clap does unavoidable damage, introducing the need to recuperate somehow, not necessarily running a healer, but sometimes having a healer as a helper or a healing dragon like Phoenix or Freya. So it is a big challenge, and you still need to deal a ton of damage, and you can't easily run off-element strats like Alisan with Leviathan or Burning Punisher or Glio. So it is a pretty monumental challenge, but you do get a Sunlight Stone, a whole stone, if you're able to clear level 54. So the rewards are there, but this is extremely long-term at this point. It doesn't seem like something you can easily complete in 1 month, unless you're really grinding these weapons, which we can discuss in a moment. That said, they don't plan to take the stats for high dragon weapons into consideration for the main campaign and limited time events, with the exception of certain special difficulty levels. So that's a little disappointing to me. I kind of feel like there was a time when the new events that came out were the most challenging content, and I kind of miss that. I think that having all of the challenge in the high dragon trials, it starts to feel a little bit monotonous, especially with the amount of grinding you need to craft these weapons if that's what you want to do. So I kind of think back to the Circus facility event, and we had a master challenge battle for the first time, Top Star Trial, and it was really hard. It was very difficult to do, and I kind of enjoyed it in a weird way because it was single player content that was balanced around just the utmost of your team's possible power, having the facility at max level. And I feel like with this and events not having harder difficulty, and maybe those special difficulty levels will be the exception that I'm hoping for, I just think that events have become a little bit stale. Part of it might be the rerun factor as well, but I didn't make any content on the Halloween revival. I'm not planning on making any content on Accursed Archives or really Stirring Shadows, just because at this point for me, there's no difficulty there, really. There's nothing to do. It's just auto battle. And I understand that that's going to vary a lot depending on your progression. So if you're earlier in the game, there's still probably some richness, there's still some enjoyment, some team building, some game strategy that goes into crafting your team for that and actually completing the different waves. But there's not really something at the other end if you have been playing for a while. So I hope that they're maybe able to add Omegas to facility events as well. I think that could be a good compromise, because Chronos Nyx and Chronos definitely scratched that itch for me of, this is hard, but this is new. This isn't just me grinding out the same, really just punishing, not necessarily hard, high dragon trial over and over. So I hope that they really mean it with those special difficulty levels. We'll continue to monitor the overall status of all players and adjust the game accordingly. At the time of writing, the results of the time attack rankings for the Advanced Dragon Trials are not in yet, but I want to thank you all for participating. We unlocked expert difficulty for all 5 elements at the same time, and we're performing rankings on top of that, so I was a little worried how things might go, but the development team was astounded by all your incredible clear times. So I'm a little dissatisfied with that statement. I really liked the beginning of the sentence, right? Acknowledgement that they unlocked everything at the same time, acknowledgement that they were performing rankings on top of that, since those were pretty big stressors for certain parts of the community, and I found it to be stressful as well. However, to say that the rankings were really good and the clear times were really good, therefore, that kind of addresses the problem of releasing everything at once, to me that's a little bit dismissing and sidestepping the actual problem that was facing a lot of players. So yes, we maybe had some astounding clear times, but that doesn't necessarily resolve the issue of having everything rolled out at once and having rankings and kind of like a mad scramble during this period. So I'm a little bit disappointed in the way this was acknowledged. It feels a little bit like a PR spin to say, well, it was really hard, there were a lot of struggles, but y'all made it, so it was okay, right? And in some ways it kind of was okay, but I'll get into that a little bit more. I'll show off my rankings while they're still around so that you can see how I ended up doing. Let's see where we were though. However, with the release of Master Difficulties, the schedule did become rather crowded, so I apologize for that. And once again here, I feel like the point is a little bit missed. I don't think that Master on top of all the experts is what drove the schedule to be extra crowded. I think it was already crowded with the release of all the experts, so I don't know that this apology is for the right thing, and that's kind of where I'm a little concerned. And this was written earlier, so let's keep reading. So maybe there's a chance that more feedback had come in since this was written, but since we still haven't provided players with enough ways to power up via augments, it seems that made things a little difficult for all of you. So that little difficult definitely feels like an understatement. And with this next, or most recent Astral Raid with Qitian Daosheng, we didn't get any more augment drops from that, so we didn't get any more rupee drops either to reset augments. There hasn't been any indication of a change in the reset cost. There is something, though, toward the end of this post, a gift that kind of helps address that, but I think some explicit acknowledgement of that would be appreciated. So we'll continue to adjust the game and balance how many augments and rupees are provided. Okay, there we go. We got the explicit acknowledgement to make it a little easier for you to challenge these higher difficulty levels. So I do appreciate that Okada-san took into consideration what was said and the feedback that was provided. I think I have to admit, Cygames had been pretty good historically about responding to player feedback. So I hope that things can turn around. Ultimately, my preference for time attack will always be that there's a way for all the players to get all the rewards, and it isn't a ranking-based system, but rather just achieving certain things, like clearing with 3 minutes left, clearing with 2.5 minutes left, and so on. But that may not be the way they're ever going to do this, because there's incentives in place to try to get people to spend money, invest in the game in order to perform well and get better rewards and get those epithets even. So I don't know that they will ever course correct with this in a way that would be satisfactory to me, but at least they're acknowledging a lot of the feedback. And when I mentioned that this was probably written a while ago, I say that because of this line that I forgot. At the time of writing, the results of the time attack rankings are not in yet. So that's why I say maybe there was some additional feedback that came in, but obviously there's been a lot of discussion about this in the community. I don't think there's really much more than I can add, but I'll try add a little bit when we look at my rankings toward the end of this video. So finally, we get to regarding future updates. 2 more updates planned this year. One of them is going to affect the home screen, so just an easier way to access quests in the footer menu, making it easier to see information not related to the main event, such as an event and summoning information tab on the home page, and a feature that allows you to change the appearance of weapons in the next update. So we already knew about that, but in co-op rooms, you can tell if it's been altered. The boss enemies they announced in the Dragalia Digests are going to make their debut at the end of the year. This group has banded together in opposition against the Prince for some reason, so make sure you play to learn more. And as with Advanced Dragon Trials, this will be extremely difficult content, so I'm thinking we're going to need Tier 2 High Dragon Trial weapons for this, and luckily it's probably going to roll out element-wise and not all at once, so I would save your Damascus ingots, if you don't have that many, until you know which Tier 2 weapon you want to max unbind first to take on that first trial. So they hope you keep building up your teams, or he hopes we keep building up our teams in preparation. It seems like there's not much else we really can do other than just keep grinding and trying to prepare. So finally, with the addition of this content, we're planning to adjust the overall game balance, so that's quite interesting. We're doing this with the hope that more players will be able to enjoy playing it, and as we make adjustments to things like item drop rates and difficulty, we'll be sure to let you know via notifications. So this is pretty vague. This could mean anything. I think one of the things this probably means is the 6th mana circle, but hopefully there's other components to this. And if drop rates for things like rupees increase, suddenly our augment situation doesn't seem as bad. So there are ways that the game could be rebalanced or readjusted to try to account for where we are now. So I'm hopeful. And then in conclusion, we're giving all the players the following items to help you upgrade your facilities and adventures. So this is what I alluded to, the 100 fortifying crystals and amplifying crystals as being a nice way to acknowledge the situation with augments, as well as 5 million rupees, which is kind of a drop in the bucket when it comes to frequent augment resets, but I think unless you're really gunning to get each master done each week, you probably are at a stable place now that time attack has ended as far as resetting augments, and I wouldn't recommend you continuously try to do that. I think that eventually you'll get the augments you need, and it's unfortunate, it's hard to signal your skill really without anything other than your investment, like your might, your stats in pubs. So sometimes just to get the necessary might in order to participate, you do need those augments if that's your only means. And even if you're on Discord, other players probably want to see that you're bringing somebody who's fully invested, or at least as invested as they are. So that's a whole can of worms that probably warrants a separate video to kind of discuss and reflect on. But I do think augments are complicated. Augments have kind of put us in this weird situation where we want to be able to clear the content, but we need to move them around to clear it early, but it's really costly, so maybe it's setting you back more. But then there was time attack, so maybe you should have done it. It just seems like a whole mess to discuss at this point, this late in the video, so I won't get into that too much. I'll just show off my rankings for just a moment. So the next installment is coming on December 1st. Mega Man event will already be live at that point, and they're working hard on development to make sure it's an event that we'll all enjoy. I think that we will enjoy that event. Thanks for reading, and thank you for playing Dragalia Lost. So let's go ahead and head over to, not here, but events, right? so we can check out the time attack and how that ended up panning out for me. So here is the Advanced Dragon Trials, and oh no! Looks like I already missed it, y'all, so unfortunately I can't share this with you guys. In the end, I was able to get in the top 10% for High Midgard Stormer's Trial, High Mercury's Trial, and High Brunhilde's Trial. High Jupiter and High Zodiac, I only cleared a couple of times within the time attack window. So for High Jupiter's Trial, I believe I was at 60%, and for High Zodiac's Trial, I was at 80%. One thing that this has led me to reflect on a lot, and I see a lot of other players moving in this direction, is the value of Wormite as a refresh resource, because at this point, it's sort of grind to win. If you can get more unbinds on these high dragon weapons, get the tier 2s, you can push up your time attack rankings, you can get more consistent clears, and basically you can build stronger teams that are capable of beating things like the Mercurial Gauntlet. We've reached a point in the game, if you've been playing long enough, that summoning starts to have really diminished returns. You might have all or almost everything from the actual summoning pool, or the things that you're missing may not actually propel you forward in the game. And I think particularly with how time attack happen, people are anchored to certain strategies, and it's very hard for that to deviate. So things like quadruple Glio, 1 Audric and 3 Glio for Master, the triple Celiera for High Brunhilde, or if not that, just, non-burnables, the double Guden and Yachio and Floor for High Zodiac. If you don't even have the right weapon types, you're probably not going to be able to get into a lot of these pubs, and the might requirements will continuously go up as people get better and better weapons and more unbinds. So we're almost at a point where it's not really worth saving resources to summon anymore. It's almost better if you're more enfranchised and you have things like Galacleo, you have a lot of the meta units. It's almost better just to spin Wormite, refresh your wings, refresh your stamina, and slowly work on unbinding the weapons on your adventurers. So this is kind of my team, or one of my teams of High Dragon ready adventurers. So Eleonora right now and Julieta have max unbound. Mikoto just has 1 unbind, and then of course Yuden's just there for player EXP. And then the other units I've built up are Galacleo, Gala Yuden. I have this kind of baby Noelle, but she's good enough, and then Elisan. So that's kind of what I've been bringing to these high trials. I'm going to try to get Mikoto's weapon max unbound, Galacleo's weapon max unbound, and I'm really undecided on light. I don't know how I'm going to approach that. And in the meantime, I'm also building backup weapons, so trying to build a sword of each element so I can use Audric, so I can use my Yuden for player EXP, so I can use Summer Celiera if I want to have somebody who isn't susceptible to burn, and so I can use Gala Yuden, so I can use, I guess, who was missing? Wedding Elisan. So that's kind of my plan right now. 1 max unbound of each element, and then just a sword as a backup, because that kind of worked out nicely. Thanks to a lot of the freebies that we got, or I guess earned through time attack, I have reached another milestone in the game where I've been able to finish 5/8 of my dojos, so that's kind of cool. And I was able to buy and max unbind every worm print. So I'm just missing some seasonal 3-star worm prints, and I'm keeping a lot of the ones I don't use at level 10. So there are some cool things, there are some cool projects. I can't say I haven't enjoyed the High Dragon grind at times, but it's definitely a different direction for me. This is something I used to play 3 times a week, and now I'm somewhat compelled, if I want to keep up with the latest content, to continue to play it more than that, and in fact spend basically all of my wings on it. So I don't really know how I feel about it still. I have very mixed feelings. I think that it's great for players who were seeking a challenge and want to push themselves. At the same time, I've seen a lot more division and a lot more toxicity in pubs. I've seen a lot of issues with coming together to try to play the game. So I'm super torn on that still. I don't think that that will change in the foreseeable future, but I will say I did enjoy some aspects of running the high trials. I enjoyed some of the creativity with things like Hybernhilda and some of the clears that came out there. On the other hand, with things like Monoglio and the same exact comp being used in High Zodiarch, I think it's also a real way to highlight some of the problems with balance that we have in the game right now. So that's really all I want to say about High Dragons. I did my best to make a short guide, and I think that going forward, I'm going to try and make a couple more guides, since that does seem to be, just general content guides do seem to be one of the things that people are requesting the most lately. So there's things I need to really update, like my Wormprint discussion. And so I'm going to try to put out videos like that and maybe some spotlights, since the events right now really don't have a grip on me at all. But I'm hopeful that some of those videos will help newer players who are enjoying the events, who are playing through and building up, going through the game for the first time. So that is going to do it for this video, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much, as always. I appreciate you sticking around, even through this hiatus where I'm not making as many videos as I did before. Hopefully Mega Man brings us something that we can all come together and enjoy, and I'll be able to make some exciting content that I'm invested in around that. But as I said, that's going to do it for today. So thank you once again. Thank you as always. Take care, and I'll see you next time.